Reddit, what's your weirdest internet experience? I don't know if this counts as a weird internet story or what, because it happened on Xbox Live, but I'll digress anyways. I bought my Xbox release day, and all the usual games. I was an avid Halo 3 player. I loved that crap. I would often play custom games for hours on end, and meet new people, and make new friends. Another fellow and I became near inseparable when we played. We always played together because we had each other's backs. One day I mentioned the town I live in, and he nearly has a heart attack on the microphone. He proclaims, "I crap you not, I live there too." I didn't know how to proceed with this, so we stayed online buddies for a while. One weekend my buddies and I decided to have a LAN party, and were thinking of people to invite. This was the perfect opportunity to invite my best online friend. I had backup in case he was a psychopath and wanted to murder me. Every time the door rang, the room would hold its breath collectively, waiting to see if it's him or not. The fateful doorbell ring comes as was expected. We open the door, and standing there is a normal guy, who seems like he's not going to murder us. We set up the PCs and boxes and get ready to have some fun. Over the next 4 years my best friend and I have been hanging out as much as we can. We are near polar opposites, but we can just sit and be entertained by each other for hours. I met my best friend on Xbox Live as well, except he lives in Canada. I asked him to be my best man at my wedding as a joke. He said yes, and him and his family drove from Canada to India to be the best man at my wedding. He is coming to Germany, where I live now, to visit me next summer. Maybe not weird, but funny. My brother and I used to play Yahoo Graffiti, basically like Pictionary, with random people in the Yahoo game room. And we used to cheat. He'd be in one room, I'd be in the other. The word would be, say, dinosaur, so I'd draw a rainbow. Everyone types, rainbow, 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 then my brother types dinosaur and gets it right. And so forth for the next few minutes. We'd be on the floor laughing. Anyway, we got banned until 2016. I think the most surprising, and unexplainable to past generations, part of the internet is the level of camaraderie it's possible to build up on the IC or via foruming. Text-based, semi-anonymous interaction is so much more personal than it might seem. I have relatively close friends in Europe, Australia, and the East Coast of the US just because of a few online communities I happened onto back in the early days. That's something about our culture no one could have predicted. I think it's because physical appearance and mannerisms can often push us apart IRL, in a way they can't when you're on IC. On IC it's just our thoughts and the expression of our feelings through our words, and there is less of an emotional barrier to being honest with people, anonymity, so we can get much closer to a person than we otherwise could in several ways. My brother beat Ben Affleck in Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne. How do I know it was him, you ask? Well, I remember my brother calling me into the room, and he was soloing against a guy named literally Ben Affleck, or Ben Affleck or Ben Affleck, who the frick cares, and my brother's name was Mama Spanks. I was affectionately Dada Spanks, and we were on the top 5 2v2 arranged teams ladder during many ladder seasons. We were good. Maybe you've played us. Inaho, my brotho, my brotho, my brotho, my brotho, my brotho. So the guys like your man you too. Funny thing is no one believes that this is really me, the actor. My brother laughs it off, and I watch him beat him 1v1. He was decent, but not on our level. Literally the next day we were watching G4 TV. I think it was actually Tetched still at the time, since we were still watching it, and they were at some game convention or another. Then they did a quick interview with Ben Affleck, most likely because he seemed out of place, and had no movie game there that he was plugging a part of, so he tells them that he plays TFT way too much. I think he actually said TFT, but meaning Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne, and that he goes by his name on UCeased. Me and my brother just looked at each other with jaws dropped. In short, I used to chat on a very localized board which was particular to a certain area of the UK. I considered them friends. Innocent days. One of the people on there was called Hamble and we had a lot in common. After about 18 months of pretty instant chatting I met up with him. He lived about 5 miles from me. He literally lived in a basement and had shelves dedicated to folders containing printouts of our conversation. He served up snacks which consisted of one lamb chop on a massive plate and described to me how he was in the process of hacking the local government systems as he was upset over some council tax issue. Definitely stumbling onto a video of my ex-aunt getting gangbanged by 4 black dudes. Just happened recently. Someone made a novelty account on Reddit pretending to be my wife and pops up every now and then to reply to my comments making fun of me. I'm actually kind of flattered. A friend A, and I were over at this other guy's, friend B, house back in 1996. We're all guys BTW, but the guy whose house we were at had AOL. Friend A asked if he could use it. Something happened while he was using it and he just straight up left. I was like WTF but didn't think anything of it and just kept playing video games with friend B. Next day I asked friend A what happened and he said he clicked on friend B's mail and saw a picture of a dude exposing his dong. So back then we were just like holy crap and thought that some evil person was forcing a picture of his dong on friend B, so I talked to him and was like, yo man, you should contact the police or something, that's terrible. That was that. Fast forward to 2010, reconnected with friend B via Facebook, turns out he's openly gay. The thought had never occurred to me back in 1996 that he could have asked for someone to send pics of himself and that he could be gay. I just assumed it was some kind of horrific online predator of sorts. Done. Okay, first off, I'd like to tell you I'm an identical twin, and female. I was just sitting at my computer minding my own business when a friend of mine online says something along the lines of holy crap, I didn't know you had it in you. Of course I don't have the slightest clue on what he's talking about, so I ask him to clarify. At this point I would like to state that I am a very modest person and take the idea of people looking at me even showing a considerate amount of skin very disconcerting. I don't show my body on any sort of whim. Apparently my twin sister was cam-herring on B or Omegle or something. Crap, he didn't buy it when I tried to tell him that those pictures were not me and my twin sister. Apparently she got posted on Motherless or something, so every once in a while I have someone message me about it, and I have to explain it's my sister and not me. Of course I'd deny it at first, but crap still sucks. Throughout the years I became a frequent user of 2 internet forums. I made thousands of posts between them and met dozens of people. Some of these people actually have became the best of friends with me and we still do stuff with each other all the time, and in some cases we've met IRL. Anyway, I have 2 great friends I met this way. We are 3 internet amigos. We've done some pretty crazy stuff and dealt with weird people, but one situation comes to mind as far as a weird internet experience. One of these friends' online moniker sometimes included Tungsten, and back when we all started using Skype to communicate instead of AIM, Fire, or MSN, all at the same time, he used it in his name. Now, not a couple days after making his account he gets a random message from some lady named Alice Chen, or something similar, asking about Tungsten. He was weirded out, but he listened to her talk. After a while he coaxed her into revealing what she was really trying to do: get business. She was part of a PR department for some tungsten plant factory business in China, supposedly. He, in response, started to tell her about our company. Again, we've done some weird things over the years. Long story short, we had a PO box somewhere in Pennsylvania for a business named C&D Inc. We actually tried to make the business seem legitimate, and most of all, legal. Technically our little business was completely legal. We used it for weird things sometimes, but it was mostly a joke. Now, however, we found ourselves being solicited for business by a Chinese industrial equipment manufacturer, and they were actually interested in our business. We got so far in the process as to start negotiations. We had meetings over the internet, and we were shown their parts catalog as well as many other things. The problem was when my friend originally started this all, he was completely joking and wasn't being legitimate and called my other friend a doctor. We were trying to shrug that off and pretend that was not the case, but we were worried about legal problems. Eventually, our goal was clear: convince the business into sending us 3 machinery joints made from tungsten that we would potentially use in our business, that were measured to be able to fit aluminum cans in them, that is, cup holders. It was a great fun, but eventually we decided that the legal risks were sort of an issue. Impersonation of a doctor or business, and the shipment of military grade material to a small town post office in the US. We just ignored them and they dropped off the face of the earth. We never got our cup holders, unfortunately. I work for a machine shop and we get solicited by such companies almost daily. You can totally maximize the amount of crap you got by asking for samples if you're up to answering a bunch of broken English email correspondence. Not the weirdest thing, but the one that is the most fascinating to me because I don't think I'll ever find it again, and so it retains the "this is so fricked up" place in my mind that viewing it again would probably resolve. Imagine if you watched Salad Fingers when you were 12 and then you couldn't find that series again, and it's just a horrible and weird memory for you. That is this video in my mind. It is one of those early interactive flash videos where you click on something and it reacts somehow. Characters will say something, or something trippy will happen, and then clicking on something else will revert it back. All I remember about this video is an animated horse that kept talking about Magina, pronounced how you'd expect it to be pronounced. He's on this quest for Magina and then he finds it, and then you click on it and the horse groans Magi-I-I-I-I, and it takes you to some kind of fricked up animated porno scene. It was weirdly explicit. I'm not sure that I want to see it again, to be honest. I remember that video like a murky nightmare from the past. I was a victim of pedophilia, kind of, and didn't realize it until about a week ago, at 18. When I was in 9th grade, 13 years old for me, a guy started chatting me up on MySpace. I thought it was totally cool to have the attention of this 30-something attractive male. We never met up, but he mailed me gifts a lot, meaning he knew my address. I probably had given it to him because as a naive young girl, I trusted him. Things gradually became more intimate and he started asking for pictures and started sending me photos of himself in various states of undress. I obliged, because it was only fair. I forgot about him for a while until the other day, when I finally had the epiphany that I met a creepy dude on MySpace and totally gave him CP. I really hope those aren't floating around on the internet, but I'm sure they are. Back when I first discovered the internet, I only had access to it on my phone. I joined one of the chat rooms on my mobile provider's site and sort of became a regular there, seeing as I had free data back in those days. I got talking to this girl after a while and we eventually exchanged numbers and would talk on the phone for hours, send each other pics and crap. After about a year, I ended up taking a 3-hour train journey to go and meet her. 8 years later we still live together and have 3-year-old twin daughters. That was pretty weird. Back in the 90s, I used to occasionally go in AOL instant chat rooms. I went into a room, not sure what it was called or if its subject theme was identifiable by name. Either its subject was identifiable by name and I was curious by the deviant nature of the title, or it wasn't identifiable by name and I entered it accidentally. I don't really remember how I got there, but it was not because I shared the interest. Anyway, I got in there and the people were all discussing their fetish, which was having intercourse with roadkill, dead animals that had been hit by a car. I kept asking things like, "This isn't real, is it?" Basically, I was waiting for someone to tell me they were just all joking around. But people were very seriously telling me to leave if I'm not interested, that they're not interested in being judged, etc. I remember one guy talking about having recently fricked a dead raccoon. I did not stick around long, I swear I didn't. Still kind of haunts me to know there are enough people interested in having intercourse with roadkill to actually make connections around the topic online. And now maybe it can haunt you too. I did that in the 80s, on CompuServe, when I was about 12 years old, in an LGBT alternative lifestyles forum. Did not know what I was doing or what alternative meant in this context. I was at summer school, using the school's computer. I got caught, was highly embarrassed. I don't have any horror stories, other than a couple of friends in college conversing with and eventually meeting underage girls. Nothing bad ever happened, as far as I know. The strangest thing that ever happened to me is that I was in a random chat room one night and started conversing with a girl from New York. I asked what area she was from, and she said she lived in an area of Queens that I was familiar with because a friend of a friend from my super small, like 3,000 people, hometown had moved up there when we were in middle school. I had actually met and talked to him when he was down for a visit probably a few months prior to this night. I told her I knew somebody from up there. She asked who. I said his name, and she was like, oh my god, that's my ex-boyfriend. That's when I realized how small the world could be. I'm female. Pretty much grew up on the internet. I'd spend hours a day in AOL chat rooms as a tween. Around age 12, I began chatting to a guy who said his name was Joey, that he was around 18-19, and he lived in New York. I live in SC. We spoke online for about a year or two, very sparsely, and always very innocent. He'd send me pictures of himself. He was young and cute. He definitely looked teenage. He eventually asked if he could call me, and me being naive, I gave him our house number. We didn't have cell phones yet. We talked on the phone about once or twice a month. He was funny, had sort of a higher pitched voice, New York accent. Then things started getting weird. His age was always changing and finally he told me he was 30. He began calling very late at night, anywhere from midnight 5 AM, always from restricted numbers, and he was always very incoherent. I'm not very familiar with drugs so I'm really not sure what he was on, but he was definitely high on something. He was mostly silent when he'd call, but between breaths or what sounded like he was taking a drag, he'd say what are you doing? Who's with you? Are you cheating on me? And other weird and inappropriate crap. I'd tell him I was going to hang up and he'd say don't hang up. Once, my grandpa answered the phone, and he asked my GP if he had been freaking me. WTF. Right, I'd tell him to stop calling, that my family was asleep, and hang up. He'd call back. This went on for the next couple of years. My family was enraged by it. I told them I was sorry for giving out our number, and they eventually blocked his calls, but not before making sure I was properly ashamed. Last summer, I was on vacation and was interneting late at night. I ended up on Omegle and had the weirdest conversation of my life. I was talking with a guy who crafted this story that he was an angel in a human's body, using it as a vessel. I know he could have been lying, but he seemed really invested in his tale. It sat uncomfortably with me because the conversation kept going on and on. It was very much like reading a short story, except I was helping to write it with my responses. Could have been lying. Because if I'm a celestial being trapped living in a mortal form, the logical thing is to tell Omegle all about it. Browsing the deep web and stumbling across just massive amounts of CP. It was sorta a shift for me after that. I used to just watch all the disturbing videos you could find and stuff to satiate my curiosity, but after seeing a little girl being forced to suck a grown man's dong, it just doesn't feel like curiosity to me anymore. It just sorta disturbed me to the point where I just stay away as best as I can. Met a stripper on Omegle. Told me she did a few pornos. Found one of them, watched her video and recognized her from a week before. I couldn't reveal my identity though. I was a bad tipper that night. A really bad tipper. I was on Ike logged onto one of the undernet servers in Canada, and there was some Ike war happening. I was new to entire thing, being in Australia on a 1.44 dial-up and all. So there I'm trying to chat to some people in different rooms. Then there was chatter about the Ike war picking up momentum. Then all of a sudden I start to see everyone's nicks changing to something like Borg0758 and Borg0759, including mine. I started to hop between channels and all the users' nicks are changing to Borg nicks. Started to see people quitting and coming back online but still get assigned a new number. Every now and then there would a message resistance is futile. I was not a very big Star Trek fan, more on like a Star Wars geek. However, I had not experienced any bot programming before of such magnitude. I was excited to be part of the event. Needless to say, I start watching Street TNG from that time on. Also got into bot scripting and web design later on, all due to this event. I was in a guild on Gaia back in the day, and befriended this guy named Shaf aka Lewis. I talked to him all the time, along with all the other people in the guild. Fast forward 4 years or so. Through a strange turn of events, I started dating a guy I met over Facebook. We were inseparable, and I was over at his house almost every day. A couple months into the relationship, he was talking to this guy on Last FM, trying to get Peter Pepper's new single, the lead singer of one of our favorite bands, Retardo Bot. I looked at the message, and saw that it was to Lewis, messaged him, and it was, In fact, the same guy. Mind was blown. Talked to a woman that wanted me to dominate her over instant message. She was very meticulous and wanted everything her way, but her biggest hang up was if I used the word pants instead of jeans, she would flip the frick out and go on a 10-minute tirade about how they're two different things and I need to never make that mistake, and if I can't get it right then we should just stop talking. I was close friends with this one guy on DeviantArt about 7 months ago. We would comment on each other's work and critique it. Fast forward 2 weeks. I log on to Updoot to find out that he was killed by a stranger in an alley. Really messed me up, man. Back in the early 90s when I didn't know crap about the internet, I went into a HTML chat room and it showed people's IP. Someone traced mine after I was being a jerk and told me my ISP, which was the company where my brother works. I freaked out and thought it was sorcery, turned my computer off and didn't turn it back on for a week. Haha, I was playing on an old game that was made in 1997 and early 2000, and I didn't know that certain individuals could read the IPs of players that had joined their games. Someone told me my IP said I should shut the frick up or he'd come find me, and I was freaking terrified. I joined a random matchmaking game on Left 4 Dead about a year after it came out. I had a mic on. As we started No Mercy 2, one of the members on the opposing team went, "Hey, Lee, is your real name Sebulsk?" I looked at her icon and recognized it as my ex-girlfriend whom I hadn't seen or contacted in 5 years. I was a mod on a nowadays non-existent Dota forum. Their structure was something like admin, global mod, Dota mod and community mod. This guy was a global mod and was promoted to the first admin mod or SMTH like that ever. Everyone considered him to be a really fair and good guy. He was wise and influential. And one day his accounts posts a topic claiming it is a brother of the guy and that the guy himself was killed in a gang fight. Now as this guy was, or appeared, as the archetype of a good person, lots of people were very sad. Some time passes, might have been a year or half a year, and another mod, one of my best friends still today, tells me he was speaking to the deceased and I joined the convo. I decide not to question him much but talk to him freely. He kind of misses everything and wants back. Well, long story short, all of the sadness we brought onto others turned into hate. I spent a lot of time on Digimon forums and chat rooms in the late 90s, and had several online friends who shared my love of Digimon. Aside from all the creepy men I accidentally encountered online, the weirdest experience I had was this girl who was really into dogs, specifically corgis. After several months of talking with her in forums and through AIM, she one day began typing differently and acting very bizarre. After finally asking her what was up, she admitted that she was actually a corgi and had learned to use a computer. She would log in when her owners were out of the house, and would chat with humans because she was lonely. I was like UHHWTF, and she spent the next hour trying to convince me that she was an actual dog. After a week of her trying to convince me she was a dog, I removed her from my buddy list. It was kind of funny at first, but she got super desperate and crazy about the whole thing. Not nearly as out there as other stories, but at the time I was really weirded out that someone would actually spend hours of their time trying to convince me that she was a dog on the internet. For some reason, this is the funniest thing I've seen all day. I virtually married a real-life pornster on Habbo when I was a small lad around 13. Didn't even know it. She was like, "Do you recognize me?" and sent a link of her spreads. I was like, "Oh." I'm sure she was like, "Oh," as well. I was on ChatRoulette horsing around at about 2 AM, and I was flipping through people fairly fast, until I saw a boy I recognized. After looking for a good 10 seconds, I matched his face with his name and realized he goes to my school. The situation got slightly worse when he didn't recognize me, panned the webcam down, and began to jerk off. Ended up randomly meeting a hot chick who was randomly moving to my small town and randomly coming to my school and was randomly best friends with my best friend at the time. We actually met through an online role-playing community that took advantage of America Online's chat rooms. Our characters initially hit it off, and one day we started talking outside of the game. She brought up that she lived in CA but was moving soon to the East Coast. I asked where and she casually mentioned my town. After I was done freaking out, I let her know I would be going to the same school she was and we both agreed that we had to meet each other. Alas, though the fates seemed aligned when I met her, I already knew she was out of my league. She was a senior, I was a freshman. She was already best friends. Even more irony here, with my best friend's sister, and she was almost a foot taller than me. We were always nice to each other and I secretly think she knew I liked her. But alas, the only date I had with her ended up in her hitting a deer with her car and that pretty much shattered the atmosphere. I still keep in touch with her on Facebook. She is living in TX nowadays and seems to be a very positive person. I spent a month invisible in a night chat room without realizing that no one was actually talking to me. Then I found the setting and returned it to normal, with no discernible effect. I loved Ike. When I was about 12-13ish in 1998, I was dinking around Yahoo Chess and playing random people. I wasn't doing too well, but I was having fun and I attribute the butt kickings to making me the better chess player that I am today. Anyway, some playgirl 20,938 or another random number joins the game. This lady is making incredibly crappy moves, barely playing, but I'm kicking her butt and my profile is gathering wind, so I kept it up. The first game was pretty cordial, all things considered, but it got creepy real fast for the second game. The first game's conversation was more along the lines of I'm 12, I go to school, I like playing chess. Typical 12-year-old banter on my end. She's asking questions like favorite food, you're a bright young man. Just generally nice stuff, but obviously trying to learn more about me. Second game, it was genuinely aggressive. What school did I go to? What's your address? I'd really like to meet you. I'm a nice guy, I promise. The little red warning light started flickering in my head. Something was wrong. This person sucks at chess and wants to keep talking. On top of that, they're being really pushy and I don't want to tell her where I live. I called them out on being a crappy player with I don't think you're even trying to play, and I am not telling you my address. Something to that effect. They logged off shortly afterward as I was typing the question why she was referring to herself as he far too frequently to be a typo. This isn't my story, but one of my best friend's story. The documentary Catfish should give him flashbacks. To give you some backstory on why said friend might believe some of this crap, he was a teller of tall tales himself, and thus probably more inclined to believe the BS. Okay, so my buddy goes to the lake one weekend with some college friends and meets this girl, and they just hit it off. But the meeting is brief, so she tells him to look her on MySpace. Dates the story, so he looks by her name and the town that she lives in, finds a girl who looks a lot like her and they start talking. Well, an online relationship forms, and this girl is just perfect for him. They have similar interests, they talk all the time. She sends him risque photos with his name on paper in them, etc etc. He quickly falls in love with her, and her with him. Then stuff starts to get weird. They are supposed to meet up, and she just disappears a week beforehand, and he is crushed by her ignoring him, and then she pops back up claiming she has an explanation for everything and will tell him soon. She proceeds to tell him that her family is in witness protection, and that they had to relocate to Australia for their own good. Alright, he kind of swallows this story, and the relationship starts to move on again. It starts to build back up to meeting again, the photos keep coming, etc. They decide after all this drama it is time to meet up. She starts acting weird again, but says again she will explain when they meet up. So my buddy arrives in the part of Texas she claims to be from and waits. Finally a middle-aged woman walks through the door. Turns out from the beginning he had messaged the wrong person. This gal would get her daughter's young friend to take pictures for MySpace and eventually my friend. Pictures in panties actually. She had faked everything. However, she knew they were destined for each other and had decided to have this meeting because they were so in love. My friend is just stunned and revolted. He listens to her story and then tells her they could never be together based on all the lies, and walks out. She was one of my favorite people to follow on MySpace after that because she was so bat crap freaking crazy. She finally gave up trying to get a hold of said friend after about a year. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.